Good evening. I'm going to be talking to you about blended learning in general and the IPSIT model given by UGC in specific. Let me just share my presentation with you. Just give me a second. So let's just talk about what blended learning is. We'll start with trying to understand what exactly blended learning is. So to understand that, we need to first look at the dictionary, Oxford Dictionary definition, which is for blended learning. That is, it is a style of education in which students learn via electronic and online media, as well as traditional face-to-face teaching, which means blended learning is an inclusion of both online teaching as well as face-to-face teaching. So it has both these components, and it is sometimes also referred to as hybrid learning, which again, hybrid, as the term suggests, means that it is a combination of classroom learning as well as online learning. And the most important aspect about blended learning is that it is a collaborative learning process. It is different from our traditional classrooms in which the students are patiently listening to the teacher while the teacher gives the lecture. Here, the learning process is joint effort by the student as well as the instructor, and the role of the teacher changes to that of a mentor rather than the way we look upon teachers or other instructors in the traditional manner. The idea of collaborative is that the teacher and the learner together formulate the learning goals or the academic goals, and on the basis of that, a particular learning path is formulated. The when the learner will learn, how much, and at what time, from where the person will learn, is also the combined decision between the instructor and the learner. This process is very helpful not only to the students but to the teachers as well, because in this, the interaction between the teachers and the students is far more intensive as compared to what it is in the usual classroom setup, because the teacher and the student, both of them, are deciding on what is the individual student's learning goal and how they are going to be going about it. The well, in a way, we can say that blended learning is not really an innovation, but a byproduct actually of the technology that is there around us. In fact, we have been, because of the pandemic, been sort of pushed into this form of teaching because of the very fact that the students are finding it difficult to come to the classes in physical presence in classes is not going to be possible maybe for quite some time to come. So blended learning is definitely a good option for not only right now because of the pandemic, but also for later time, because we can see as we go along understanding the blended model of learning, we will realize that it is a very, very effective model. The As the term suggests, the blend is between the e-resources and the face-to-face structure, but it is not just limited to that. It is a lot more than that. It is a lot of additional resources which are available online, which the teacher may not be able to bring to the classroom if the classroom is held in a physical manner. But since the classes right now are online, lot of those resources become available to both the teacher as well as to the learner. What are the different features of blended learning? Let's just take a look. First, of course, like I mentioned, since the entire academic goal, the entire academic path is decided by a collaborative effort between the student and the teacher, naturally the student engagement is far greater than in a situation where the teacher comes in, gives a lecture, the students listen and go out of the classroom. So how much each one of them has really imbibed, we will be able to understand only when we take a test or there is an assignment or at the end of the semester when there is an exam. And we know as teachers that there are some students who are very highly motivated and are very well involved, but there are many students who are not. Especially there will always be in every class one set of students who are just coming to the college to complete a degree, and they are really not interested in what they are learning. They just want to get their degree at the end of it. But here, because it is going to be, the entire process is collaborative between the teacher and the student, the engagement of the student in the entire learning process is much higher. Naturally, since each student and the teacher are going to interact for formulating their academic goals, formulating their academic path, the interaction between the teacher and the student is also much greater. Like I said, responsibility of the learning is not only on the student, and the responsibility of teaching or disseminating information is not entirely on the teacher. It is the responsibility of learner is divided on the learner as well as on the instructor. Time management and flexibility is high. The student is and the teacher together, they can decide on when they want to learn, where from they want to learn, and how much they want to learn at a particular time. So the time management, flexibility, ability to learn at the time when the student is ready to learn is a very big plus point of blended learning. Naturally, because of all these aspects, the learning outcomes are enhanced, the students are more interested, they take more efforts, they may take more pains, and the learning is much more as compared to the traditional mode of learning. The flexible teaching learning environment helps in the entire process, and the learning is almost continuous, because not only are they the student and the teacher interacting in and deciding on what is it that they want to learn, but since the student is interested in learning, it is his or her own academic goal. So there is almost continuous learning, because we will come to understanding synchronous and asynchronous learning. So both these are there in the students' lives. So the learning is almost a continuous process, and lot of learning is done by the student himself or herself. The focus in blended learning is on application of the information learned. So a lot of opportunity for experiential learning is part of blended learning. And like I have been mentioning earlier, the role of the teacher changes to that of a mentor. So then no longer the teacher is not playing the traditional role of a teacher. The teacher is there more as a guide, as a mentor to help the student grow and accomplish their academic goals. So let's understand, how is blended learning different from online or distance learning courses? We have a number of distance learning courses. In fact, there are universities which only have distance learning courses. So how is this distance learning course different from blended learning, what we are talking about? So blended learning is much more than just online education. They, like we have, I've already spoken in the last slide, that the interaction between the student and the teacher is much greater as compared to the distance learning courses, and the students are having offline face-to-face time as well, which may be between 30 to 50%. which is not there in distance learning courses. In distance learning courses, you have very short times of interaction, maybe once in the week, or maybe 10 or 12 days in a semester. But in blended learning, the interaction, face-to-face interaction is also an important component. And the interaction between the teacher and the student is much greater as compared to distance learning courses. And the freedom to the student in choosing their academic goals, in formulating their academic paths, is also there in blended learning, which is not there as part of the distance learning courses. So what are the different components of blended learning? So there are two basic components that I have mentioned already. One, of course, is the online mode, and the other is the face-to-face mode. So let us look at each of these. What is online mode? The online mode, it talks about the synchronous and the asynchronous learning activities. The synchronous activities are the ones in which the teacher is taking a class, even if it is an online class, but if it is real time at that particular point of time, it is referred to as synchronous learning activity. And if you have, say, for example, given the student some material which the student is supposed to read at a later point, or have given a video which the student can see whenever they want to see it, not necessarily when the teacher is present over there, that is considered as asynchronous learning activity. So in online mode, you would have both synchronous as well as the asynchronous learning activities. So when you have, when you are talking about access to e-resources like texts, graphics, animations, interactive multimedia also, which is being uploaded on any form of learning management system, then we refer to as the refer to it as the asynchronous learning activity. Then links, accessing digital libraries, studying from open educational sources, then these are referred to as the asynchronous learning activities. But attending an online virtual session with the instructor would be a synchronous activity. That is the real-time interaction between the teacher and the student, even if it is online. So that is the synchronous activity. When you're performing individual or group activities with the instructor being there and the students being present, that would be synchronous activity. Participating in online workshops and webinars would also be a synchronous activity. But completing an assignment and uploading it on the learning management system, attempting tests and quizzes, these would be considered as asynchronous activities. And online mode would consist of both synchronous as well as asynchronous learning activities. Also, the engaging in virtual labs and simulations, e-conferences, some kind of internships that you may have recommended to your students, the going through any kind of online short-term courses, any training programs, any all or you've given some projects to the students and you expect them to work on those projects either individually or as a group activity. These all can be done online, and these would be part of the online mode of the blended learning. The second component of blended learning is the, just a second, it seems to have got stuck. Just give me a second. Sorry, we'll go back to it. Okay. So the next aspect, which is the face-to-face mode, this refers to the usual way we usually meet our students in the classroom. That is the face-to-face activities. But the face-to-face aspect is a little different in blended learning as compared to the traditional way in which we do it. Here, the face-to-face, in the face-to-face mode, you are not going to be taking a regular class, 1 hour class like we do right now at present. Here, the very short lecturettes are given, and the idea of those lecturettes is just for either introducing a new topic or summarizing a topic that you have just completed, or if the students have not understood any particular aspects about what we have discussed so far, so then that is an opportunity for them to clarify, to understand any kind of complex concepts which the students would not be able to understand otherwise, any kind of queries that the students may have, any group activities which you would like to involve them in face-to-face situations, or you want them to sort of borrow certain books from the library, or there are certain, for example, in some of the science subjects and also in psychology, there are practicals which are required to do face-to-face on ground in classroom. So those are the things that can be done when you are in the face-to-face mode. It is not in blended learning, the face-to-face mode is not supposed to be the way we teach traditionally in classes of 1 hour of lecture. That is now not how face-to-face mode is seen as far as blended learning is concerned. Sometimes there may be some tests or quizzes that you would prefer the students to do it on a face-to-face situation. So that also you can do in that time. But it's not supposed to be for the lecture time. That is the lecturer, the teacher is giving a lecture and the students are listening to them. That is not how it is seen in blended learning. So now what I had mentioned, the IPSIT model, which is the Indian framework for blended learning. There are very many different types of models for blended learning. This is a model which has been given to us by UGC in the new education policy. So the new education policy has looked upon education from a very different perspective, and they have tried to make the education as student centric as possible. And they have taken up the models of blended learning and sort of taken the essence out of those models, different models, and come up with this IPSIT model, which they have sort of proposed, and they are wanting that it should be included in higher education. And like we were mentioning earlier also, it has the components of blended learning of one, being student centric, second, the education being available to the student anytime, anywhere. So let's look at the IPSIT model. The IPSIT model is an acronym. The I stands for Identify Resources and Learner-Centered Activities. P is Provide Resources and Announce Activities on LMS, LMS meaning Learning Management System. S is Scaffolding and Support to Learners. I is Identification of Learning Gaps and Feedback. And T is testing. Testing is an important component of any learning, because that's the only way both the student and the mentor can understand how much the student has been able to really understand the information that has been imparted. So let's look at each component separately. Coming to the first one, that is identify resources and learner-centered activities. In this, the IPSIT model is, like I mentioned earlier also, that it is a model of blended learning in which online and face-to-face teaching learning environments are present. And the very important aspect is that the entire process of how the learning is going to take place has to be planned beforehand, so that the learner is able to achieve the academic goals that the learner has started with. And for that, the appropriate learning resources have to be provided to the learner. So basically, what are the aspects that we need to keep in mind? We need to determine what we will deliver before the learning event. That is, before I come to the class, before I have an interaction with my student, I need to know very well that what is it that I am going to uh, uh, discuss with my students. So in that, one of the things that can be done, which the students also find interesting, is show a short video related to the topic. The students are, you may even give the video before the students come to the class, so that they have already seen that video, and you can discuss that whatever the topic was in that video during your interaction time. The second aspect is that what will you do during the learning event, that also has to be determined beforehand. You have to be planned very well as to what is it that you're going to be doing during the class time. You could do role plays, you could do practical application, you could discuss with the students the analysis of the concept that has been discussed in the video that you have shown earlier, or you've asked them to see and come to the class. And it's, the learning does not end at the interaction level. What is the student going to do after the learning event? That is, after the interaction that you had with the student, what is the learning, or what is going to be the continuous learning that the student is going to go through after they have left your classroom, after they have left your interaction? So some kind of support, some kind of coaching and feedback needs to be given to each student, so that the student goes out of your classroom motivated to learn more about the topic that you have discussed in the class. So one of the ways in which you can plan, this also has been given in the by the UGC in the IPSIT model itself. So how is it that you will plan? You will take the, say for example, the module, then what are the objectives when you are planning a class? What is the objective of that particular class? What do you plan to do in that particular class interaction? Which how much time is that module going to take you? 1 day, 3 days, 10 days, 1 week? How much time you're going to take to cover that topic? What are the different resources that you're going to use? You're going to use open educational resources, or you're going to use some reference URL, or you're going to use some material which you yourself have created, instructor made, or you're going to take some material which you have taken from somewhere, some copyrighted material for which you have already taken permission. Then you will give the information about that activity in some detail. This all is for your own benefit. That is for our benefit, that if we have already planned our class, and if we have planned what is the activity that we are going to do, then it is easy for us also, and we are not caught unawares in the classroom as to what we are going to do. So for both online mode as well as the face-to-face mode, we decide on what are the resources we are using, what are the activities that we are going to be doing, how much time we are going to take in that particular activity, and how much time we are going to take to complete that particular topic. The second one is provide resources and announce activities on LMS. That is, the when we are talking of blended learning, it goes without saying that we need digital environment for that. And for any online teaching to take place, a good learning management system has to be in place. The learning management systems are different. I'll come to that in the next slide. But the most commonly used ones are Google Classrooms or Microsoft Teams. These are, or My eClassroom, these or Moodle. These are the different learning management systems that are usually used. And when any of all of these are well equipped for us to be able to put up quiz or some kind of assignment, or if we have taken some material from the students to be able to give a feedback. So these tools are very good as far as all these different activities are concerned. And it is important for us to keep putting up some resources for the students to access during the asynchronous time as well. So like I was mentioning, these are the different LMS tools. The Moodle is quite commonly used. Google Classrooms is, I think, used in quite a few colleges in the university, in Delhi University right now. And you have other, Zoom Learn also is another one which is quite commonly used. Besides that, we have My eClassroom, and we also have Microsoft Teams, which can be used as LMS. The third one is scaffolding and support to learners. So as I was saying that the learning is a continuous process, and the teacher is no longer a teacher, and the role shifts from teacher to a facilitator. So it becomes very important that we continue to provide that scaffolding and support to our students so that they can continue with their self-learn process. And this scaffolding can be in terms of feedback, and support can be in terms of feedback, and it can be in terms of providing extra material, providing material on the LMS, and using the face-to-face classroom situation for discussions, resolving queries, and lot of emphasis needs to be placed on the application of knowledge. Having theoretical knowledge is not sufficient. Books are available by thousands on any topic. So if the student is to learn just from books, then they can pick up book from anywhere and just read. But that is not the idea of learning and knowledge. The knowledge only is considered to be knowledge if that information that the student has, he knows how to apply that knowledge. The application of knowledge is the most important component of any learning. So that is something that we need to place emphasis upon. The fourth aspect of the IPSIT model is identification of learning gaps and feedback. So like I've said earlier also, feedback is a very important component, and sorry. And it's important as to how we give that feedback. We need to remember that the feedback needs to be with the purpose of motivating the person, motivating the learner to learn further. Uh, uh, we as teachers will probably almost always know more than what the student does, but that is not what the interaction is supposed to be about. It's important that we at no point of time we don't put down the student in any way. The feedback that we need to give to the student has to be with the idea of encouraging the student to learn more, not to criticize or to put down, but to give corrective feedback which will help the student to learn further. There can be formative and summative assessments. I will come to that in our in the next presentation, what is formative and what is summative. To give you very briefly, formative assessment is what we do while we are teaching in the classrooms, the quiz, the MCQs, the presentations that we take from our students. These are formative assessment. And what we do at the end of the semester to see how much the student has learned, that is referred to as summative assessment. So when we are identifying gaps and giving feedback to the student during the learning process. For that, we use formative assessment. So these kind of formative assessments need to be given from time to time so that both the student and the facilitator know where the student is as far as their academic goal is concerned. And like I said, for at the end of the semester, when we assess the students' achievement of the learning outcomes, we give summative assessments. And these summative assessments are as important as the formative assessments, because that is what will tell the student as well as the mentor or the facilitator how much the student has been able to reach the learning outcomes that the student had planned for himself or herself. And we of course need to remember that if we are going to change our mode of imparting information and disseminating knowledge, then our way of assessing that information would also have to change to a great extent. So let us look at the components of blended learning. We've what all we have already gone through. We have the face-to-face training, the face-to-face offline classes that we will have. Then we have virtual classrooms, which is the synchronous learning, webinars, links which we provide to the students who they can go onto those links to get further information on whatever has been discussed in the class, simulations and internships, assessment, and the most important aspect is one-on-one coaching. So that is, each student and the instructor have a one-on-one relationship, a one-on-one coaching, so that and also since each student will have a different academic goal, so it's important for us to formulate the entire academic path also according to the student's academic goal. So I would like to say this at the end of this presentation. We will be talking more in detail in the next presentation as well. So basically what I would like to say here is that designing a blended learning course does not mean that it has to be complex in nature. It only means that we acknowledge that learning is not a power hierarchy. With that, I would like to say thank you, and I will start with the next topic in the next presentation. Thank you so much.